Okay, this has been quite a serious discussion, so let's lighten it up a bit with a story that shows how we can reconcile the teachings of Advaita, Vishishta Dvaita, and Dvaita. It's a story about 3 sadhus, 3 monks who were trained in the lineages of Madhva, Ramanuja, and Shankara, respectively. One day they went to the seashore. Standing in the sand, the first sadhu, who was a follower of Madhva, said to the others, "Look at the vast ocean. See how every wave is born from the ocean, sustained by the ocean, and eventually returns to the ocean." That's exactly how Madhva described the relationship between individual souls and Lord Vishnu. And see how each wave is different from all the others, and different from the ocean itself. That's like Madhva's famous doctrine of difference. And see how waves depend on the ocean for their existence, but the ocean exists independent of the waves. That's like Madhva's teaching that every soul depends on Lord Vishnu for its existence, but the Lord himself is independent of his creation. The other 2 sadhus listened carefully. Then the second sadhu, a follower of Ramanuja, described the ocean quite differently. He said, "I understand your perspective, but as you can see, every single wave is a small part of the ocean. The vast ocean possesses countless waves, just like Lord Vishnu possesses countless divine attributes, as Ramanuja said. And each wave is a tiny part of the vast ocean, just like each soul is a tiny spark of Lord Vishnu's infinite divinity. All the waves are attributes or aspects of the ocean, just like the world and souls are all various aspects of Lord Vishnu, as Ramanuja taught us." After a long pause, the third sadhu, a follower of Shankara, said to the others, "What each of you said doesn't make any sense to me." "What?" they exclaimed. "Don't you see all the waves?" "What waves are you talking about?" he said. "Don't you see the ocean?" they asked. "What ocean?" he said. "Then what do you see?" they asked. "Water," he said. "I see only water. Here there is water alone, just like Shankara said that all that exists is Brahman alone." The 3 sadhus on the beach went on arguing late into the night. Who do you think won the argument? None of them. Each sadhu was right from his own perspective. All 3 explanations were correct from their respective points of view. Arguing about which is right or wrong ends up being counterproductive. As long as the sadhus continued to argue, they couldn't enjoy the beauty of the vast ocean. The same is true for arguments about Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, and Dvaita. Each of these 3 can be considered correct from its own point of view. Arguing about them only entangles you in a web of words and logic that ultimately prevents you from appreciating the beauty of the absolute reality, however you might consider it. Now, to conclude this presentation, I'd like to share with you a personal theory about how these three different Vedantic perspectives came about in the first place. Since it's just my personal theory, you don't have to accept it as being true. Also, please remember that I've been trained in the teachings of Advaita, so my perspective will naturally be biased. This theory is based on the fact that among the three major Vedantic teachings, Advaita historically came first, followed by Vishishta Dvaita, and later yet by Dvaita. To me, it makes sense that Advaita came first, since it seems to most accurately represent the overall intent of the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutras. No doubt you can find many passages in those scriptures, especially in the Bhagavad Gita, that support Vishishta Advaita and Dvaita. But when you take those scriptures as a whole, their main focus really seems to be Advaita. Yet the teachings of Advaita are extremely lofty and can be quite difficult to grasp. As a result, these teachings can remain beyond the reach of many sincere spiritual seekers. Now, consider this. The goal of every teacher is not just to teach, but to teach in a way that's helpful to his or her students. I can imagine teachers long ago struggling to convey the highest, most elusive teachings of Advaita and completely failing to make their students understand. Some teachers would probably try to make their teachings more accessible, easier for their students to grasp. They might have modified or revised their teachings, creating what's now known as Vishishta Advaita. But even Vishishta Dvaita could be too difficult for some students to fully comprehend, so later teachers might have simplified it even further, creating the teachings we now call Dvaita. By saying all this, I don't mean to suggest that Advaita is superior to the other two, or that Dvaita is inferior in any way. It would be ridiculous to suggest that calculus is superior to algebra, or that multiplication is inferior to them both. These are different subject matters, and each subject matter is intended to meet the needs of different students. And that brings us back to the important principle of adhikari bheda, the difference of spiritual seekers. Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, and Dvaita can be understood as being intended for three different groups of seekers. Each is meant to meet the spiritual needs of all those who can fully comprehend and benefit from its teachings. But none of this suggests that one teaching is better than another. After all, the ultimate purpose of these three teachings is not to impart philosophical or spiritual principles. Their purpose is to address the problem of human suffering. And all three can most certainly bless their followers with tremendous spiritual growth and inner peace.